And welcome back to the show. We're joined with Jason Bohn once again here, serving the Kansas City metropolitan area from AnxietyCenterKC.com. He's the CEO and Clinical Director of Adolescence there, and so much more because the Anxiety Center at Renew Counseling Center does offer a lot of help to those in need. And I've gotten to know Jason over the past few months of speaking to him, but I hope if there's new listeners today, you're going to love him just as much as we all do. Jason, introduce yourself and say hello to everyone, please.
Hello, I am Jason Bohn. As I recently and I didn't share this, but I recently turned 4011, which one of my friends told me is the best way to look at 51. And my 5-year-old likes to tell everyone that. Some reason he knows that. So I've got a 5-year-old that just walks around, Dad's 51, just to make sure everybody knows this. I have been doing work with adolescents since I was like 20 years old, and I started in youth ministry and working with them, and have stayed close to adolescents or families my whole career, whether it was building a community-wide homelessness system that impacted adolescents, or the work we do now, which is an intensive outpatient program to really help those young people who are struggling with anxiety, depression, panic disorders, ADHD, as it changes into other things, comes into there. And so we do that 4 days a week, 3 hours a day. We have young people in our room, and I've got a great team here. We also do the same kind of program 3 nights a week, 3 hours each for adults here at the Anxiety Center.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for sharing and getting to know you better, at least our new listeners. Did you have a area of focus for us today where we should get started?
Yeah, I really want to talk about noticing skill. Last week we talked about the invalidating advisor, and the advisor is kind of that inner voice that we have. And the noticer is how we notice what's going on inside of us and outside of us. I really wanted to start with a question for you, because I haven't gotten any feedback on this, on what we're doing and whether it's helpful or not. And part of the noticing skill is actually being aware of how you're impacting the world, and then getting feedback so you know how to act next, or how to interact next. And so is what and how I'm talking about this stuff with bold parenting of struggling adolescents, is that making sense to you? Is it helpful? Jill, you still there?
Listen, do you hear me? Yeah, I said,
Oh, okay.
You sound great. Maybe I don't sound so great, but I said yes.
Okay.
Go ahead.
All right. So I just wanted to check in on that, because it does apply into the noticer skill. And the noticer is part of the DNAV model, which is acceptance commitment therapy for adolescents, developed by Louise Hayes and Joe Siriachi. D is for discoverer, which is kind of finding new ways to interact with the world. And a couple weeks ago, we talked about defense mechanisms, and your discoverer is how you get past those negative or unhealthy defense mechanisms. The N is noticer, and we're going to do a deep dive into that today. Advisor, we talked about last week, which is that inner voice that's trying to protect and keep us safe, but from everything. And the V is for valuer, and we'll get to those in the next couple of weeks. But valuer is finding things that matter to you, because then it's worth going through the struggles to get to them, because they matter to you. They're important to you. I just want to highlight the DNAV model offers a place to begin, and it gives a language for both parents and for young people. And it kind of gets to the heart of the issue, because we tend to be like, I don't want to dig too deep. I have a lot of parents tell me that they feel like they're walking on eggshells with their young person, and not knowing how to get that done and get with it. And young people have difficulty understanding their physical signals, identifying their emotions, and regulating their behavior. And so developing the noticer skill is really a remedy for these kind of problems. I want to start with, for the first couple of weeks, I did a coping skill and teaching coping skills, which is just a way in the BOLD model to breathe deeply and slow down. And today we're going to do AND, which is literally DNAV backwards. And it stands for aware, name, and describe. And for any parents with a young person who doesn't seem to be able to put words to their emotions and what's going on. This is a great skill to teach and practice, and also to calm them down when we're in the midst of just what's going on. So aware is just become aware of your breath. And so anybody listening, I just want you to, how is your breathing working? Can you become aware of it? Can you feel it? Counting breaths is a great meditation technique, but just being aware of it slows you down. Name this, name the sensation. So aware, name. In is the name. You might become aware of butterflies in your stomach. I know we've done this a couple times, and I've actually spoken to thousands of people, and literally there are still butterflies in my stomach every time I dive into a new conversation with people. But I have to be aware of that and slow myself down, so I bring the best possible me to it. And then after that, the D is describe. Simply describe the awareness and naming, connecting it to a feeling. So butterflies in the stomach is kind of this picturesque, but then, I want to put words to it and describe it. Say, I'm nervous right now. I am feeling nervous, which in the bold model means now I've observed my thoughts and feelings. I'm going to listen to my values, and that is that I've committed to doing this show, and I want to help families, and I want to help struggling adolescents. So guess what? I'm going to push through that feeling of nervousness to get there. So that's and. It's a noticer coping skill, really focuses on this noticer that we're going to talk about today. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. So the noticer represents a group of behaviors that all humans are born with. It's the space where we notice what's going on inside our body and going on what outside of our bodies. Noticing help us to identify and use information from the world. We learn to notice incoming messages, attend to them, and respond to them, or just allow them to come and go. That is an option most people like. We either have to respond or turn away. No, we can just flow with it. We can just go with and let them come and go. For example, we get to notice our anger, and then we get to decide best how to act rather than merely reacting to our anger. Skilled noticers are able to appreciate the present moment and respond to their noticer messages in ways that help them thrive. And again, noticer is just that, an analogy, a way to think about what's going on. Do I notice what's going on around me? And the noticer, it senses physical and psychological events as they occur, uses the five senses to receive information from the environment. When you shift, and you can do this, and this is what we hope young people will do, is shift into their noticer. People are behaving in ways that allow them to receive information from the world through sight, taste, sound, touch, and feel, and through their physical reactions and emotions. The noticer allows inner experiences to come and go rather than trying to change or cling to it. So this is one where I know I've shared with the audience, my father passed away here in February, and
I'm sorry.
Yeah, and it's I know he's in a better place, and I know he's out of pain. So logically, my rational mind is very much okay with this and where it leads. But the noticer in me, I just have these strong feelings come up when I want to call or do something. And I really need to be able to be aware and label that and feel it and allow it to come and go, so I can not react to it and shut down or not get done what I need to do, whether that's parenting or my job. And so that's what we mean by allowing it to come. I feel it. I'm not pushing it away. I'm not fighting it. I'm just letting it come and then letting it go. And really the noticer, and we have an exercise we call the noticer pause, because the goal of noticing your feeling is to put a pause between something happening and you reacting. Because impulsivity is really just this happened and then I react. I am impulsive and I do this thing in response to that. So you say something I don't like impulsively or without, I just react and I say something mean back. The noticer says, oh, I felt that wasn't nice. What do my values actually say how I want to interact with this person? And so that's when we don't automatically react to our inner experiences, we're often able to better choose actions in the service of what we care about. So developing our noticer skill is a key to breaking free from old patterns of behaviors that are no longer working. Noticer space can often be likened to a car's neutral gear. When noticing, people aren't necessarily moving forward, discoverer, or looking back, their advisor, stopping. Really, they're just taking a look around. Another really good metaphor for the noticer is feelings and thoughts are a lot like the weather. All right, the noticer observes them. I've gotten to the point where I really don't even pay attention to weather reports because I'm like, it's just as accurate for me to step outside and see what's going on in the weather, because I can't control it. I can't change it. It doesn't help me a whole lot to worry about tomorrow's weather. And so the noticer observes things, the feelings, emotions, and allows them to flow just like the weather does. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, and we can't change it. It's like, no, go away, clouds. I'm about to get married. That's going to happen this spring. Yeah, the noticer uses all the senses and bodily reactions to take everything in. Emotions come and go without automatically provoking reactions. Anger doesn't automatically lead to hitting, fear to fleeing, or shame to withdrawing from other people. So, a young person, and for you listening, if you're like, maybe my young person isn't good at this skill, unskilled at emotion regulation, and that's what the noticer is influencing, is emotion regulation. Looks like emotional vulnerability, like they're hurt by everything, emotional reactivity. Could also be emotional lability, like you just don't see anything. There could be anger outbursts, steady negative emotional states, which is, your psychological language for depression, anger, shame, anxiety, guilt, and then deficits or like really inability to feel positive things. So if you've shut down your emotions or you're not working on your emotions, you're really damaging both directions. Your ability to deal with pain and grief, but also your ability to feel joy and just happiness and really pleasure. Somebody who's skilled at noticing and skilled at emotion regulation has the ability to be aware of and constructively handle both positive and challenging emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And an example here is we had a young person, again, Chandler, who's my young person who we adopted, who has some trauma stuff going on. And it was interesting. You were taught how to react when he got out of control in those negative ways. And he was, crying or screaming. You were given tools for that. But then, interestingly enough, because he couldn't regulate his emotion, he still doesn't have a very strong noticer. When he got really happy and we're tickling and we're having, we're really actually having joyful time, he got just as out of control. And because he didn't have any way to regulate either end of his emotional spectrum. And so we've kind of had to step back, and that's still in younger kids. For those of you that have younger kids, that might mean they can't control all their bodily functions.
Yeah.
But in his case, we've got to work on expanding that noticer so he doesn't react both to the negative stuff and to the positive stuff in ways that are damaging to him and the world around him. They're skilled at emotion regulation or noticing, demonstrates the skills to manage and express. They need to be able to express their emotions. It's amazing how often a young person thinks that slamming a door is expressing their emotions. It's not a healthy way, but it is expression. They're able to notice the activity of their advisor. And so if it's invalidating you, you can notice it and not react, but say, hey, I am still going to move forward on this. And the whole goal of getting better at noticing skills is to build a flexible and strong, because the benefits of that are noticing involves pausing, and allowing one's experiences to be without always reacting. The less we react in old unhelpful ways, and this is really probably the hardest thing any of us have to do, is to actually change patterns and behaviors that we've gotten into. And so we just like, that's how I reacted last time, so that's how I'm going to react this time. And really working on that noticer skill says the young person can notice that's what they're feeling here and then not feel the need to react in that way. Second benefit of noticing is it improves sensitivity to information from both the environment and the body in the present moment. It's amazing if you know somebody who's really not good at recognizing emotions, they have a hard time responding to people. And they just aren't getting the messages, the nonverbal that makes up anywhere from 75 to 90% of all our communication, which is why radio is such an interesting format for this kind of stuff. And I want to point out, we all begin as noticers. Infants enter the world as noticers, literally experiencing the world as physical sensations. When babies feel scared, angry, or tired, they simply feel scared, angry, or tired. And they let you know it, right? They don't interpret their feelings as good or bad. They're not like, oh, I'm scared, so that's a horrible thing. No, I'm just scared. They just experience their emotions, these feelings, as sensations that arise, often as a result of interactions with the world. This is an essential skill for infants, allowing them to detect their sensations and communicate their needs to their parents through tears and smiles and that kind of stuff. So noticing, sadly, disappears. It fades away. Adolescence is a deeply emotional time, all right? And so this is why noticing disappears sometimes in adolescence. One that's often more memorable than any other stages of life, and that's from Dan Siegel. The emotions are so strong that all of these events and things in our life they stick in our brain, which is part of what emotions do. Young people get their first taste of independence and the big world beyond home. They experience exhilarating highs, love, maybe sex, music, parties, and deep friendships. They also experience crushing lows, heartbreaks, a best friend's betrayal, feeling isolated in the schoolyard, awkward, romantic encounters. To manage these intense experiences, they turn to the advisor. All right. So they're trying to find words, they're trying to find rules and solutions for their emotions, and attempting how to figure out how to make bad feelings and painful experiences go away. In this way, emotions become something to control, stomp out, or manage, not just feel and enjoy. And so thinking of destructive strategies, think of all the destructive strategies at their hearts we attempt to avoid or squash feelings. Not just, and this involves cutting. Young people cut or self-harm in other ways to avoid feelings, or to they've suppressed their actual feelings, so now they want to feel something, and cutting is something that they can feel. Using substances, surfing the internet obsessively, whether that's productive or goofy, but using TV as a distraction, avoiding social situations, worrying, overeating, undereating, shutting down, giving up, dissociating, denying, procrastinating, bullying. We talked about those defense mechanisms a couple of weeks ago, and this is what happens as young people develop coping mechanisms or ways to interact with the world that aren't always healthy. And then they stay and react and use them some more. And this is where Western society and the way we talk and teach logic also sometimes gets in the way of emotion development. For example, think of a child, and I'm really working on this because I have 3, 5, and 5 in my household. But if a child hits somebody, we usually ask, why did you do that? And we insist on an answer. Children, are kind of confused by this question at first. Why did I hit them? I wanted to hit them. But eventually they learn that the reason must be stated, and then they're likely to answer because I was angry. All right. So now we've connected hitting to anger. On the surface, this sounds like a good reason. Yet, if we accept it, we've reinforced the idea that emotions cause actions rather than actions being chosen. This emotion as cause reasoning can lead to a long string of inferences, and our brains work this way. If I hit because I was angry, I hit because I was angry. I'm sorry. Let me rephrase that. I hit because I was angry. If I'm not angry, I won't hit. If I can stop myself from feeling angry, I won't hit. Anger is bad because it makes me do bad things. If I feel anger, I have a problem. There's something wrong with me.
Mm-hmm.
Does that logic make sense?
Yeah, it sure does.
And so I'm really, with my young people, like, I still ask the why question. I can't really, I really can't stop myself. But then I get to the point of saying, yeah, it's okay to be angry. It's okay to not like that they took your toy or you don't get to play with that. But it's not okay to hit. It's not okay to bite. What do? We do a lot of redos in our house. How would you redo that behavior that isn't hitting or something like that? Because it's okay to be angry. We need our young people to hear that it's okay to be angry. And you know, rarely do any of us hear that all feelings are okay. I had a young man, and he was 18 in our group one time, and this is a direct quote: "We get taught our whole lives to treat other people with kindness, compassion, caring, interest, and concern. But never in my life was I taught to treat myself that way." I think that's a really powerful statement in somewhat how we want people to react to the outside world and to other people, and we don't necessarily teach them to treat themselves as well.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I've got a little experiment. I don't know where we're at with.
We're not taking a break for you. Just continue, please. Go ahead.
Okay, well, we will do that. I want to do, call this a feeling your feelings exercise, because again, I use DBT, which is dialectical behavioral therapy from Marsha Linehan, and this is one of her dialectics that, you know, either we stuff our feelings or we stick our feelings, both to those extremes, and they're kind of damaging. So when I do this with people, and I want you to just kind of imagine there, Jill, and you're going to have to tell me how big your balloon gets, but I want to imagine that you have a balloon in your hand, and for every one of the statements that I read, I want you to put blow air into it and then hold it off. So your balloon gets bigger the more of these statements that are true. All right?
Yeah.
I frequently pretend like everything is okay when it's not. Do it on my end a little bit. I ignore my emotions. I smile even when I'm sad, hurt, anxious, or angry. People are surprised when they find out I'm depressed or anxious. I focus on other people's problems and ignore my own. I'm literally paid to focus on other people's problems and not my own.
Yeah.
I feel emotionally numb a lot. I will hold in my emotions until they are too big to ignore. People tell me I'm emotionally distant. That list is stuffing your emotions. Next list is, I often replay a crisis, and keep doing this. I often replay a crisis or difficult event over and over in my head. I focus a lot on my difficult emotions. Right about here, I did this in an audience once, and I'd given them all balloons and made them do it. Right about here, a guy in the back, you just heard this huge pop. His balloon exploded because he had blown so much air in on each one of these comments. Yeah, I beat myself up a lot for things that are far in the past. Most of the time, I don't let myself see the positives. People tell me that I don't get over things easily. People tell me that I make a bigger deal than I should out of things. It's hard for me to let go of difficult emotions. So right now, I just want you to imagine, and hopefully those of you listening also just imagine, how big would your balloon be? And then... Huh?
Yeah, everything you said, I breathed it. Yeah, my balloon is big right now.
Okay.
I do all the time. Pretend to be happy when I'm not. And yes, go ahead.
You're like paid to do that. Doesn't matter what happened today. You're paid to sound good right now. And so right now, what I have people do is take that balloon, and you do this in a big audience, and it's really interesting. But you know, just let go of all those negative ways of dealing with emotion. But then think about what happens when we do it in the room, and we haven't gotten to do it as much during COVID, but balloons go everywhere. And,
Yeah.
you know, at some point somebody gets whacked. It's usually me. I get whacked by some balloon that's flying through the air. And that happens all the time in relationships. All right. Somebody's feeling strong emotions. They aren't dealing with it at the right time. And then somebody else completely sideways gets whacked with their emotions. So those are the two extremes. Stuffing, which means you're just bottling up, you're shoving like emotions into a compost pile. And amazingly enough, compost piles don't smell better with time. And then the other half is sticking, which means you just hold on to them. I'm unwilling to let go. I just want to keep this here and really maybe beat some people up with it. Finally, this last list, and what I do is have you take your balloon at the same size it was, and each time one of these statements is true, to let some of the air out slowly. I often I notice my enjoyable and difficult feelings when they're happening. I let my feelings come and go. I notice both the positives and negatives. I am usually able to tell people how I'm feeling. I am comfortable with my emotions. The people close to me usually know how I'm feeling. When I have a difficult emotion, I can feel it without holding on to it. And that is feeling your feelings. So that ability to feel them in the moment, let them come and go. When I work with a young person who's really stuffed for a long time, we have to teach them this, but we also have to teach them to let the past emotions out slowly, because if you don't, and we have this happen, a young person had it built up for so long and had stuffed them down, and when we finally convinced them that was a good idea to feel their emotions, they like cried for the whole day. And that's letting them out too much at a time. So that's stuffing your feelings, is pushing them down, ignoring them. Sticking them is just repeating them, letting them get into your advisor and just keep thinking about them so they make you feel bad more. And feeling your feelings is just kind of like treating it like the weather. It's going to come, it's going to go, and I'm going to observe it. And then maybe, respond, react appropriately, whether that's getting an umbrella or, grabbing a winter coat, as the case may be. So I'm hoping that makes sense. And real quick, I think I need to shut it down here. But the goal, if you're for yourself and for your young person, is to help them normalize their emotions. All feelings and being aware of all feelings are normal. Being aware that no feeling needs to be controlled, eradicated, changed, or downregulated. Being aware that all feelings pass, often quite quickly. Practice so be aware what's going on in your body. There's lots of ways to do that. We'll keep coming back to some. Actually name that physical sensation, and then describe the inner experience as feeling states or emotions. Put real words to it. And finally, then allow feelings and whatever is there in the moment. Allow judgments about feelings and not reacting to them. And then extend notice and allow skills with daily mindful practices. So this is where mindfulness, some meditation things, putting that pause in there really allows you to respond to your emotions instead of reacting to them. And that's the noticer.
Right. Well, thank you for sharing that. And look at this, we're out of time. Can you tell us how we can get in touch with you? And of course, give us all, the website, phone number, any ways that our listeners can reach out to you. And thank you again for today's conversation.
Yeah, no, I would recommend, if you're a parent, go to boldparenting.online. I've put this material, other materials that you can use with it there. You can get access to even some Kahoots that would teach your kids some of these skills as we go from that same site. You can reach me at jason@anxietycenterkc.com. And if you're in the Kansas City metro area, anxietycenterkc.com is our website, and you can find out all about us.
Perfect. Well, thank you again for your time today. Looking forward to the next conversation.
Thank you, Jill.
No, really, we appreciate it. Always a pleasure to speak with you. You have a great day, of course, and everyone else. Stay tuned. More of the shows coming right up after the break.